Mitzvah Adin. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening everyone, wherever you are. It's obviously good evening here in Tel Aviv. We're looking at the skyline of Tel Aviv. Well, actually you're looking at, because there's a balcony and we can't see. I'm here with the Yair Raviv, basically a person who believes weed should not exist in the law.
Yes.
So let's go straight into the topic. What is the status of drug legislation in Israel right now?
In Israel, we have a very strict drug policy. Drugs are not legal. Any drug is not legal. There is a very vast medical cannabis institution. There are like 40,000 patients who receive cannabis from the state, but only they're allowed to consume the cannabis they receive from the state. They're not even allowed to grow it themselves.
Mm-hmm. And obviously I presume that's quite expensive for the taxpayer, because the state is... I mean, the state deals drugs to people?
No, they pay for it.
Mm-hmm. So the state buys it from somewhere else?
Yeah, there are 9 licensed growers, and they sell only to those patients. So this is how it works. But cannabis, not legal. And enforcing the law is very different in different parts of Israel. Like here in the center, in Tel Aviv, you can smoke in the restaurant, in pubs, outside. You smell weed everywhere.
Yes, I was about to ask you how the enforcement works.
But here, no one deals with it. In my hometown of Ashkelon, not a good idea to smoke outside. Also in the north, like basically in the periphery of Israel, how do you say, the suburbs, where the police is bored and they got nothing to do, they will deal with cannabis users and dealers.
It seems like in the United States, where the police is bored, they enforce every single speed limit, whereas in the big cities where there's higher crime or higher risks or whatever, or terrorism in this case, they have a lot more important stuff to
deal with
than to run after weed smokers. So what would you change to this? Would you just abolish the entire body of law, or how would you deal with this?
The whole issue of drugs in the law, it's very problematic for me. Like not even as someone who is like a libertarian, I don't see how the state can justify the prohibition of manufacturing chemicals or using or experimenting with chemicals. And it's not even to speak about cannabis, like it's a very light substance, like no death, nothing, like very, very safe and with medical properties. Like, so I think that all drugs should be treated the same and be totally removed from the law. Like, they should not be mentioned. If you want to go ahead and try LSD, it's your problem, and the best that I can do as a state is maybe make sure that you won't get like something that is not LSD, like that you can actually receive the thing that you want to try.
So you see, it should be regulated pretty much like on shampoo or something.
Yeah.
For instance, on shampoo there is no not that I know of. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean in Europe it definitely doesn't exist. You just has to be shampoo if it says on the bottle that is shampoo.
Well, it doesn't even have to be that. I think that they list the ingredients and they have to attest that this is the case, that you don't have anything harmful. Like, if you don't say that you have like cyanide in the shampoo, you're not supposed to have cyanide in the shampoo.
There you go. So that's basically your policy, your go-to policy for anything else?
My go-to policy, yeah, that will be, it's like, don't deal with it. It's not your problem. Like, I don't see why heroin should be illegal while a doctor can give OxyContin, and at the end it also ends up in the street and people use it. I mean, so what if it comes in a fancier box? It's okay.
It's suddenly not heroin anymore. Fair enough. How far is Israel from having a policy even remotely close to what you want?
Very, very far. Very far. It's unbelievably, like, even with the cannabis that I'm involved with the struggle to legalize cannabis in Israel for the last 5 years or so, it doesn't move anywhere. Like, and every time that you think that something positive happens, at the end of the day, when you look into the numbers and what's the meaning of what's going on, it's against us. It's always against us.
Is the culture against the idea?
No, it's like the approval rate for cannabis is very high in Israel. It's used a lot, like I think about, which is astonishing number, what I'm going to tell you, it's about 30% of the population tried it for the last year.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, man. Usually high numbers are around 12%. So that's a very astonishing high number. It's a country in post-trauma, you know.
Yeah, fair enough.
So it's good for everybody.
So if the approval rate is too high, then why hasn't a politician or even indeed a faction of a political party emerged?
There is a political party that is completely about legalization of weed, but it turns out it was very corrupted, and every time they did like something else, and people don't vote for them. Even people who are really advocates for cannabis don't vote for them, including me. And besides that, there are a few politicians that say that they approve it and they want to change the law, but they're always on the opposition and they're always like on the extreme fringes of their own parties. I don't think like even in the big parties there is a very strong feeling against cannabis, but right now who is the Minister of Police?
Of Interior?
Yeah, of Interior. No, not Interior. Of the police. There is a different role here in Israel.
There's a separate ministry.
It's a separate ministry. So he used to be the chairman of the largest anti-drug organization. So he owes a lot of favors to that organization, and for him to legalize weed would be a political problem, specifically him.
Ah, so it's a conflict of interest groups in the end.
And also the medical industry in Israel, which is huge, it's also a conflict of interest with them.
And they prefer their own monopoly, obviously.
Of course.
I'm sure you've already thought about that, but I'm asking more to hear your answer for the audience. Have you considered, dare I say, infiltrating into every single political party? And
I strongly advocate it. Me, myself, I'm a member of the Likud party, which is the right-wing party in Israel. But and I strongly pushed people, even left-wingers, to join this party in order to change that. But we're dealing with stoners, man. It's hard to move them.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, stoners in particular are probably a hard case, but libertarians in general is like herding cats.
Yeah,
it's just.
You have like a good reason to join a party and try to change something from the inside. Then David, your neighbor here, will tell you no, don't join the party.
Right, but no, I was thinking even other political parties. I mean, I'm sure there are socialists who could join the Socialist Party.
Yeah, for everybody. But in Israel, you have to realize one thing. At the end of the day, it's a one-party state. Okay, you can bet your ass that in the next election, the Likud is going to win, and probably also the election after that. It will be a very long process until that party will lose power. So, if you want to make a difference, do it in the big party. The smaller parties, no one gives a fine rat's ass about them.
Yeah, yes. I mean, Likud still has about what, a quarter, something like that, 25%.
They got Bibi Netanyahu.
Yeah, they got King.
They got the king.
Fair enough. They got the King Bibi. And by the way, how is King Bibi's position on this topic?
He never speaks about it. Never speaks about it.
Yeah, but I thought you would know as an activist. I mean, it's probably.
At the end of the day, he's a very, let's say, liberal person in the sense of like vice issues. Like he doesn't have problem with the gay community, he doesn't have any problem with women or something like that, and I think that according to that logic he should not have any problem with weed. So, but that's my guess.
Okay, I see. How about other drugs? I mean, you told me already, the enforcement on weed varies quite a lot. Yeah. Obviously in Tel Aviv it doesn't. I mean, the enforcement is very lax. Last night I went to a cafe and it smelled like weed everywhere. The whole street smelled.
My whole street all the time smokes like weed.
But how about other drugs? I don't know, let's say, cocaine maybe, or...
Cocaine in Israel is very, very expensive to the point that people, like very few people can purchase it. It's very hard to smuggle drugs into Israel.
And of those that can purchase it, most of them don't.
So it's not legal in any way. It's like if you get caught with 5 grams or more of cocaine, you're in big problem.
How big the trouble? Is it comparable to the United States or?
No, it depends. In the United States, let's say for the first time you'll be okay, second time you're going to see a few months in jail, like 6 months. It would be very plausible if you get caught second time with the hard drugs and not...
So there is a difference in law between weed and cocaine and heroin and...
Yeah, there is a difference in law. Like basically they're all scheduled class 1 drugs. So, but in Israel it's very hard to get into prison, okay, for criminal offenses that are not violent. Like they will give you at least one chance before they kick your ass in jail, even though they are allowed to, like according to the law. So if you're talking what says on paper, for growing cannabis, one plant, you can go to 20 years inside. At the end of the day, I don't think that anyone for like home grow, like 4 or 5 plants, received any jail time.
Okay, fair enough. So there is already in the judiciary a trend towards kind of leaving people alone and let's not overcrowd our prisons for something like that. I see. You said that it's very hard to smuggle drugs in Israel, so I presume most of those that do exist are homegrown.
The cannabis in Israel after the second Lebanon war is that prior to the war, hash used to come from Lebanon to Israel. After the war, the border was totally shut, so you can't bring any more hash from the north. From the south, we used to receive from Egypt. Because they used to also smuggle women, no one cared about the hash. Once they started problem with the women, and after that with all the Eritreans and the Sudanese that came into Israel, they shut the border. So also from the south you can smuggle hash into Israel. So now in Israel everything is homegrown.
And definitely not from Jordan, where anything is punishable by death. So nobody is taking any chances there.
And also I wrote the Israeli book of how to grow cannabis. Like it's the only one, so I taught a lot of those people who grow how to do it.
You're really a maverick, aren't you? The state is trying to keep people safe from drugs and you write the manual on it.
Yeah, how to do it yourself, man. Be self-sufficient. No, I started my struggle because the police harassed me. Okay, because I did the route, man. I went to high school, I went to the army, I was a combat soldier, everything, okay? I go to the big trip in India, I come back to my hometown in Ashkelon, and I got harassed by the cops. Okay, fair enough, this is the game, I know the game, I get harassed by the cops. I leave Ashkelon, I go to university, I start a job, I'm a law-abiding citizen, and I drive in the north of Israel, and I got harassed by the cops.
For what?
For a possession. They caught like 3 grams of hash on me. So that is, this is where we have a problem, man.
so that's what got you into this.
Yeah.
So does that kind of harassment still happen today?
Yeah, definitely. A lot.
How many consumers are in this country, in your estimation? Which I presume it will be much more accurate than mine.
I would assume regular cannabis users around 600,000.
So that's almost 10% of the population.
That's almost 10% of the population, and I'm not counting the medical ones. So, and because I'm very familiar with the growing community and I know how much cannabis is produced in Israel, I think my estimation is quite accurate.
Yeah, for 10%, usually what I usually say is that when you have 10% of the population radicals, that usually changes policy. That's why I'm a bit surprised.
But here we're not radicals. Here it's a very like, if you do it, you try to be low key. I think this is one of the issues that they make it illegal, because they know that people who consume cannabis, and there are a lot of them, try to stay under the radar. They don't go to demonstrations, they don't do problems, they don't do like harsh Facebook posts about what the government troubles them. They want to be under the radar. So this is why it's one of the reasons it's illegal.
Could they be convinced to no longer stay underground?
No, it has to be like me. You have to be like confronted with the cops and to see the meaning of what this prohibition means. and then you become an activist against it. Until that moment, you're sedated as a fat cat.
You mentioned earlier, before we started the camera, something about cryptocurrency. What is your involvement in that? Just curious.
I'm a very avid supporter of Bitcoin. And I truly believe that Bitcoin is one of the humanity's greatest invention. I mean,
Bitcoin itself, or cryptocurrency
no,
in general?
Bitcoin. I think that everything that happens after Bitcoin is like copycat and people trying to make money out of an idea. If it solves a technological problem for a certain community, like what I call altcoins, everything that is not Bitcoin, it's amazing. But the purpose of me and you being able to exchange value without the involvement of any government or
government sanctioned institution like a bank.
Yeah, like a bank, it's quite amazing, and the fact that like all the citizens of the world can be attest to this method of value transfer, it's amazing to me. And the fact that you can stop it. I mean, I got convinced that Bitcoin is a real thing. I used to have a supplier in the States that he used to give me discount if I pay with Bitcoin. So that was my only involvement with the crypto. I used to buy, every time I needed to buy something from him, I bought Bitcoin and pay with Bitcoin. That's all. One time I went to buy Bitcoin in the embassy, and I saw 3 Arab men buying Bitcoin each for 10,000 shekels, which is quite a lot of money. And I asked them why. I mean, what's your involvement with Bitcoin? So 2 of them are sending money to their family in Syria, in the war, which there is no other way to send them any funds. And one of them is sending money to Gaza, to his family in Gaza. And then I understood, man, this is something.
Black market intensifies.
I need to get into this. So I started buying.
Yeah, because if they can send money into such problematic areas in the middle of a bloody war without nobody being able to
and you see,
properly
it's like
intervene.
there are like sanctions everywhere. You can do it with banks. You can do it with any other method. Just with that.
Yeah, and but there is definitely a blockade in Gaza, so definitely you can't. Yeah, in Syria, well, you can carry them in cash with yourself if you really want to. But
that would be very dangerous. But sending money via the cell phone, it's where everybody can accept it. It's amazing to me.
Where do you see the future of cryptocurrency?
First of all, I don't see it disappearing. This is here to stay.
Yeah.
It doesn't go anywhere. Like you can eliminate this the same way you can eliminate algebra. Okay.
Fair enough.
So this is here to stay. I think that it's going to get much stronger. I think after the next economical crisis, like Bitcoin was created after the previous one, the next one, people will understand why they need to get into it.
So you're pretty optimistic overall about.
Or you can say I'm pessimistic about everything else.
Yeah, just everyone else will burn and I'll have my Bitcoins.
No, your money in the bank is not going to worth anything, man. Like I see what's happening with my money. Every year that goes by, the government is taking money from me, not by raising taxes, but by inflation.
Inflation is a tax. How do you explain that to people? I've been trying for the last 3 years to explain to people that the inflation is a tax.
It's the worst tax. It's the worst tax.
Yeah, because the only tax you cannot vote for.
Okay. And they can tax you as many times as they want.
As many times as they want, yes. And there's no warning beforehand. Yeah. There is no debate about it.
There's no repercussion.
And no repercussion, no political repercussion, because it's not the prime minister that does it. It's the governor of the bank who is allegedly independent. Of course, it's not.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you convince people that inflation is a tax?
The problem is that most of the people you'll convince that inflation is a tax. You say this is the price you pay for being in a civilized society. You have to pay taxes.
Well, yeah, but how many of them? I mean, at the very least, can they at least be transparent? Because inflation is very perverse in many ways, because it's not transparent and it's not.
I think what you have to, like, every time that you see someone complaining about the prices going up, you have to tell them, you know, this is a tax that you are paying.
Yes.
And what tax is for? For the time that the government needs money. The more time passes, the government needs more money, so they have to raise the tax. And this tax, you call it inflation. But it's a tax.
It is a tax, yeah. How about other vices? Because I'm really interested in this. For instance, prostitution. What is the status of prostitution?
It's I'm not really know how it works in Israel. I think it's totally illegal, and now they're trying to pass a law that it will be legal to use the services of a prostitute. Like if you go to a prostitute, you're going to be in trouble, not her.
Ah, so that's the Scandinavian model.
Yeah.
is.
And I read that it did a lot of problems over there because
of course
it totally went underground in Muslim neighborhoods and stuff like that.
Yes, and the customers are no longer civilized Swedish men, are usually usually Islamic immigrants and other individuals who are less than polite with the providers of the services. And the Swedish men, they just take the train all the way to Copenhagen, which is just across the bridge from Malmö in Sweden. And in Denmark, you know, brothels are perfectly legal and perfectly safe and perfectly clean, and all the Swedes just go there. And the Danish prostitutes are very happy about it, and they're like, I hope Sweden never changes their stupid law, because it's been tripling our business.
I mean, how we have like the first interaction we had with God was prohibition. He told the first woman, Hava, not to eat from the apple. And Hava ate from the apple, okay? So like the first prohibition failed. You had one person and God supervising him, and it didn't work. And since then, governments all over the world...
What makes us think that we are humans, governments instituted among men, can actually enforce
God didn't manage to do it, you can manage to do it. It will not work, man. Leave prohibition alone. It doesn't solve anything for no one.
Is there anything that you would agree that it should be maybe limited or prohibited? Any item or vice?
Let's say,
on the state level, not on private property. That's a separate discussion, obviously.
In the community, every community can like choose for themselves what they choose to prohibit or not. I don't think like chemical weapon, nuclear weapon. I can understand that this is not should be like in the reach of many people in the world. But in the first place, if you didn't have government that are so strong in fighting against each other, you would never have nuclear weapon. You would never have chemical weapon.
Not convinced by that. I mean, at the end of the day, the nuclear weapon would have emerged anyway, because it was just one man who discovered how to do it, and then eventually.
No, it was a very big project.
Oh,
a lot of like the ideas were there.
You're right. It would have probably been discovered like in the 80s instead of in the 40s, but it would have still happened even without bigger government.
Before that, you would have like nuclear reactors to generate electricity. And everybody will have the idea that, okay, we can blow up the world with this, but why even go in that direction? Unless some government throws tons of money on you to develop something like that. I mean, there are a lot of stuff that no one developed. Like everything is developed first for the military.
Well,
okay.
Not everything, but most
a lot of it.
Sure,
and then someone says, okay, this night vision thing can also be used on cell phones, so let's take that. If it was the other way around, like the most of the production and innovation was made by private companies,
and then the military,
you had a lot of stuff, like a lot of bad stuff would not be out there. I think.
So I take it that you're not into private nukes.
No private nukes.
I'm just testing how far into the anarcho-capitalist way of thinking.
I'm far, but I think that there are some things that shouldn't have existed in the first place. So in a society that would be like anarcho-capitalist, you wouldn't have them at all. You wouldn't have to test or ask about nuclear weapons in a world that you don't have nuclear weapons. So that, I think I'm pretty like on the extreme end of non-government interference at all. It doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah, I was discussing with a socialist a few days ago, and I kept on pressing him to tell me 5 government programs of anywhere in the world that actually worked as intended.
No.
And he had a quite a hard time.
And still believe it. The government has one job. No, it has 2 jobs actually. The government has to create poverty, and the government has to produce violence. This is what they do. They need poverty because poor people need governments, and they need violence because everybody else needs to be kept quiet and check. And okay, you protect me, so I will pay you a lot of money. I will give you 70% of everything I own, not including inflation, to you, but just keep me safe, man.
Right. I presume that your position isn't particularly popular overall in Israel, isn't it?
No.
And I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked Moshe. Why are there so many socialists in this country?
It's a socialist country. It was founded by socialists.
Sure, but that was 70 years ago. Why are there still so many
It's
socialists?
everywhere. It's in the indoctrination of the state schools. It doesn't. You wouldn't believe how strong it is. Like,
test me. I can believe almost
the guy, like the first prime minister of Israel, is called Ben Gurion.
Gurion, yes.
He's like hailed as a martyr in Israel. Like, he's a saint.
Why?
In my family, which is
I know quite a bit about his career, and why?
Man, he's a criminal.
Yeah.
He's a totalitarian, and you can adjust the history as much as you want, but that's the truth.
So why is he hailed?
Because until 79, it was his political party that ruled. They wrote the books, all the big institutions. I mean, the government is nothing here. The army, all the clergy, that you don't choose them. They are not elected.
Yes,
they are who control the country.
They're appointed by God.
They're appointed by God or non-elected people. Let's say the Supreme Court in Israel is very, very strong. The Supreme Court can do whatever it wants in Israel, and they are not elected, and they're all left-wing.
So it's not like in the US where you can at least vote for someone that might appoint non-leftist justices. That just doesn't happen here.
It doesn't happen. Like most of the power of the committees who choose the judge, and you can't elect them, you can't do anything about them. It's like professionals.
I see. And that's kind of terrible. Are you in any way optimistic that might slowly, maybe not during your lifetime, but I
think even in my lifetime it might happen. I mean, the right-wing, intelligent, articulate voices that can defend their opinion are becoming more and more present, and they can't ignore us. At the end of the day, there will be more of us. The problem is that they rely too much on social media. Like the libertarians in Israel, they rely too much on social media. They don't believe it's a fucking echo chamber. Nothing happens in it. It doesn't, outside Facebook, no one knows what Facebook is. Okay, you need just 1 week without Facebook to understand how unimportant it is.
Yes.
So what the fuck are you doing in there? Go out, do some damage in the world, man.
I was about to ask that. Is there anyone concerned with the, I guess I would call it, in the community activism, direct activism, door to door, sending flyers, distributing things?
No. It became like a pickup club.
Why?
Because at the end of the day, most of it is to get some friends, to have a clique of like-minded people. That's it.
Yeah, but as you said, if you stick on the social media in your own circles, nothing happens.
Yeah, you get laid.
Fair enough. I can't really argue against that, but getting laid aside, getting laid notwithstanding, the purpose would still have to be changing some further changing some other mind.
That would be, if you want to be realistic about it, it has to be through the big parties. We need a strong group of libertarian people in every political party including the left ones. At the end of the day, the government is bad for them as much as it's bad for us. So
oh yeah, of course. It's just that leftists don't realize it, or they realize it and then they propose more government as the solution.
Yeah, let's try to solve that with like more fire.
Yeah, more of that. Yes, because you know, I heard this from an economics professor that when he's confronted with the left-wing argument, oh, that there is a class struggle, he's an anarcho-capitalist, and he says, well, yeah, I agree. There was the rest of us with the government class, the political class. I agree, it's a class struggle. And then they're like, hold on, does not compute. But the rich, you know, the rich, if they're not connected with the political class, they're just as fucked as you are.
And they're not as rich.
Yeah, they're not as rich anymore. Yes, soon enough, of course.
Yeah.
Right. So speaking of being rich and not so much, do you see any progress in changing the taxation system in this country? I've had a bit of contact with that, and I was like, holy crap. Well, it's not as bad as Denmark. That's definitely what I can say.
Yeah, but it's on the same scale, man. It's like we have
it is on the same spectrum. Yes.
It's a little bit, you have to change a few numbers, and we are as fucked as they are. But at least we know what the Arabs are, what they are not aware. And like we are very, I think Israel is one of the best places in the world because we know our neighbors. Okay, you are just welcoming them and starting to realize what's going on. And so
we're not in Romania.
No, you know, I know.
But in Denmark, yes, and in Sweden, especially in Sweden.
In Germany, in Berlin, it's amazing.
Yeah, last year I was in Sweden, and in some places I needed Arabic to get around because Swedish and English.
You speak Arabic?
No, but I had a translator with me.
Okay.
And I started studying Arabic since then. I've gotten to about 150 verbs and maybe 300 nouns. Were very useful to me in Jordan last week. So yeah, I'm hoping to get to the level of speaking Arabic in about 1 or 2 years. It will be my 13th language. So yeah, but seriously, at least you guys know the neighbors.
The taxation system here will change after a very, very big economical crisis that will. It's impending. I mean, there's going to be a lot of unemployment, and the tax.
There's economic crisis of food. That's what you're saying?
Not in that level. What happens right now is that a lot of retail is closing down. In Israel, buying online is very, very strong, especially from AliExpress and Amazon. You're not even buying from Israelis, you're buying from outside, because it's much cheaper, high quality. You can't compete with that. So a lot of people are getting fired for that reason. On the other hand, we are very close to the age of autonomic cars, like it's around the corner, so you're going to have a lot of people who are drivers who are going to lose their jobs. It's a matter of 10 years, tops.
I'm not that optimistic, but I see your point.
And the more the more the country is not free and it doesn't like help personal initiative for businesses, it's going to create a lot of unemployment.
The transition from this age to the next one will be harsher because of the lack of liberty.
Because of the lack of liberty, it's very hard. I'm a business owner. It's a nightmare. Like you have to be masochistic to open a business in Israel.
Yeah, I spoke with someone yesterday who used to be a bar owner, and used to be is the operative word because he dropped out. He's like, no, it's just getting too insane.
Yeah.
And especially businesses that deal straight with the public, the level of regulation. I mean, I thought Europe is bad, but then I saw the regulations. That
if he owns the bar, he is totally screwed. I mean, you know how many regulations I had to face, and I'm considered a business without too much regulations. Like I did it on purpose, so I would not have to face regulation. And without having to face regulation, I faced a lot of regulation. And but after an economical crisis, due to the fact there are not going to be many people who will be able to pay tax, I think the system will have to change.
It will have to change. It will be well, not by force, but it will be compelled.
Yeah, it will be compelled. I mean, you can't afford that. You can't afford to pay so many people not to work. You can't do it. And you can't have like an army that strong without reason. And for the army, like most of the money is for salaries of people who retire at the age of 45. And they don't work anymore.
Yeah. And that's not sustainable either.
It's
the rest of the economy is choked by regulation, for sure. Right. So you're pretty optimistic overall, even though...
Yeah. The current level of things can't last forever. It will have to change. I mean, the politicians are trying to buy support, and that support is becoming more and more and more expensive. It will come to the point that you can't afford it anymore.
Yeah, but up until that point, things can go.
Oh, they will.
Oh, they will go. Oh, I see. So you've taken that into account already. Things will get worse. That's why you're buying Bitcoin.
Yeah, of course. There's going to be a crisis. There are going to be a very big transition. Think about the world like in a few years without oil, okay? And not because oil will run out. I don't believe that oil will run out. I think that due to regulations, EU is not going to allow use of fossil fuels in Europe and stuff like that. This is going to cause a huge crisis in the world. I mean, you got very, very strong countries who depend on that money, and they're not going to be too happy about it.
Not to mention the users. I mean, you know, the average European will still need to run his car somehow, and nobody can afford to buy.
And it will be expensive because also the electricity will be okay, we got a green planet, but it's fucking impossible to live in.
Yeah, it's inhabitable, and it's not inhabitable. Yeah, because all of these quote-unquote alternate technologies, well, most of them are just not economically feasible at the end of the day.
I mean, I go to Berlin a few times a year, and I see all those wind turbines and all these solar panels in a country that doesn't have sun, man.
Yeah, I could understand them in Jordan, but in
in Jordan
they're probably not feasible. Yeah, but at the very least in Jordan you have strong sun for many hours, even during winter. But in Germany, 6 months a year, there's almost no sun at all, especially not in Berlin, which is very up north. Yeah, but Jesus Christ, the governments are gonna kill us all. Well, I guess the most honorable thing is to choose the way we die. So
yeah, of course.
I mean, if we die of weed, at the very least, it's...
It will be a Guinness World of Record because you will be the first one who died of weed, so go for it.
I see. Is there anything else that we didn't cover, and maybe... maybe we should?
I mean, my main work all the time I speak about the responsible use of cannabis, and I teach people how to grow themselves the cannabis. For me, it's like this self-sufficient, at least in the plant that is like your treatment, your daily treatment. I strongly believe that you have to do it yourself, and not due to any regulations, because the government should not deal with it, because like it's something that accompanies you if you're a user. That's it.
All right. Then, Yair, thanks a lot for coming to my show. It's been a pleasure. And now I guess I'm going to head towards somewhere in that direction to go and meet someone else. It's been very intense. Many thanks to the Austro-Somalia Institute for Peace and Cooperation, I think, or to promoting peace and cooperation.
They change it all the time.
Yeah, there you go. But many thanks to the Austro-Somalia Institute for helping quite a lot for this Freedom Alternative Tour. And with all of that being said, see you all soon.
Bye.
Cheers.